Welcome to On-Ramp, on our way to MBA 643. I am Dr. Danielle Morin, and this is Module 2 on Table and Graphs of Categorical Data. This is the plan for this lesson. We will attempt at visualizing data. On the first part, we will look at summary variables, summary table for one variable, bar chart, Pareto chart, and pie chart. And the next part will look at the contingency table for two variables and at side-by-side bar chart. So let us start with the summary table. What is it? What does it try to do? A summary table tallies the frequencies and or percentages of items in a set of categories so that we can see differences between categories. There's only a few possibilities for describing a categorical variable. It's mainly based on counting. We have to count the number of categories, identify them with a name, and then count the number of observations in each category. Once we have the counts, we can display them graphically, maybe using a column chart, a bar chart, a pie chart, or a Pareto. So let's start with an example. Here we have a survey of 100 students that was conducted, asking them to indicate their level of anxiety before taking a statistics class. The variable gender and level of computer experience were also collected. Anxiety is measured on a scale from 1 to 10, where 1 is not anxious at all and 10 is extremely anxious. Here are the data on 100 students. So just to see the first few data points we have here. Let's take the first student in the sample. This is a male student with moderate computer experience and has a level of anxiety at 8 before taking a statistics class, when we know that the maximum is 10 with extremely anxious. So this student is quite anxious before taking this statistics class. I hope it's not your case. Now we'll take this data set of 100 observations and try to put it in some tables. The most useful tool that we have in Excel is the pivot table. We will show how it works in a few moments. Excel will generate the following results easily and tell me we have 23 with extensive experience, 15 with minimal, and 62 with moderate. Well, something is not correct here. We don't have an increasing intensity. Instead, it's extensive, minimal, moderate. So this needs to be changed. We need to change the order. That can be done very easily in Excel. And we will have this way, we will have the minimum, moderate, extensive for the total. The command that we will use is by right-clicking on extensive on this item here. Select to move it till the end of the list. And we will show that in a demonstration a little bit later. Now it is interesting not only to have the number, the frequency, but it would be nice to have the relative frequency. If in this case I have a number 100, it was easy to see. But if I have a different number, it would be nice to look at the relative frequency, which is the frequency, the count, over the total. So I can generate that. 15 divided by 100, it gives me 0.15. This is now called my relative frequency table. I might like to have, instead of those decimals, maybe I'd like to have percentage. So this will become my percentage frequency distribution. 15%, 62%, and 23%. All the tables are equally good. Now the main tool to represent these categories with their frequency, maybe an easy tool would be the bar chart. Excel, when we ask him, will take these frequency and put them into a bar. So it will just give me the results and show by the size of the bar, I will know which one is more frequent. highest frequency. So you see, we have 0.62. So the bar chart can be done horizontally or vertically. And it can be done based on the relative frequency, the frequency, or the percentage frequency. Another description, graphical description of the data would be with the pie chart. Everybody knows the pie chart, and it is where the pie is subdivided into the different categories. So by the color minimal, it's 0.15, we have it there, 0.23, and 0.62. The colors make the difference, so I can see that those with the moderate knowledge, it's bigger than the two options together. There are different kinds of pies that you can select, like people like different flavors of pie. So that can be done, again, using Excel. The bar chart is a very good tool for accomplishing this. So let us go now in Excel and see how these things can be done, which is done quite easily. Here we have the Excel data. Experience, anxiety, and gender. So let us generate a frequency distribution for experience. Then I only need experience, but we can select, we can see it works for all of them. I will insert, and you see here at the left hand side, it's a pivot table. My data is already there, and I like to keep the worksheet on the same worksheet as I have my data. Now we go to the right hand side of this screen and we will choose experience. And already my categories are here, and I will ask for the count, which is the frequency. Now I already have a frequency table, but as we said before, the order is not appropriate. So I click on extensive, we right click, go to move, and where do I want to put extensive? At the end. So here we have a frequency table the way it should be. So let us take my table here, and I will format it. This should be my frequency. These are my frequency, and these are my level of experience. Now I have a nice frequency table. I might like to add, as we saw before, the relative frequency. And we see how it's done. It's by taking this observation, divide by the total, which is 100. And I'll do the same thing here. I will copy this cell and do it everywhere. I choose function. Now I have a relative frequency table. And now I would like to build my percentage, also my percentage frequency. So the percentage frequency will be exactly those numbers. I will just bring them up here. I'll paste them. But now here we have them as percentage. So I have my relative frequency, my percentage frequency. Now I'd like to have them into some graphical representation. So how will we do that? So let us use what we have here, my categories, and I have my frequency. Let's try to generate with this. So I will say insert, and I always look at the recommended chart. It's quite good because it tells me, did I make a mistake or not? This is the bar chart that we saw earlier. I'd like to have, I look at the options that I have there. I have the access title, so I like to have the access title. So this title, it should be the experience level. And this one here would be the frequency. The frequency. The title should be changed. It should be a frequency bar chart of experience. That is quite a nice one. I could have, instead of a frequency bar chart, I could have a relative frequency bar chart. So in order to do that, I will copy this part of the data and this part here. I've used the Control key. And I will insert. Again, I ask if there is a recommendation there. And maybe this time I will use one standing up. Here is my relative frequency bar chart. From here, I can add the title of my axis, and this will be the experience. The experience. And on that one will be my relative frequency with some typo. And here will be relative frequency bar chart of experience. Right? Maybe I like to add to this the data label. So I'd like to see for each one the proportion. It's easier to see than trying to look on the axis there. Now we saw another representation would have been the pie chart. So let us do it again. So I block this with Control, I go take the percentage frequency. And now I will insert. Again, I look at the recommendation, and one of them is telling me, yeah, the pie chart would be a good option. So here is my bar chart. But I don't see very well without the indication of the proportion. So again, I'll change the title, and I have an appropriate graphic for this representation. I can play with the color, with the sizes, and with the design and the format. So that gives me how to generate easy graphical representation point with our Excel program. Sorry. Would you like also to know how many are within the gender category? So I can do that too. So I will do exactly the same thing. I will insert a pivot table. My pivot table, I will put it on the existing one, and I will put it, I'll put it here. Again, I go on the right. What do I want? I want the gender, and I want also the count for gender. So here I have already the gender and the count for each one. So the pivot table turns out to be very useful when I have a large data set and I don't see the end of it. I know maybe I have 4,000, 5,000 observations. It can really very important results. Now let us take another example here. A group of 200 university students known for shopping online were asked to identify the main reason why they do so. We have the following distribution. How do we know it is a percentage distribution? Well, first of all, I look at the percentage. They have to add up to 100%. If that's not the case, this is not a good percentage distribution. These, how will we represent that? The best way to represent this is with either a bar chart or with a pie chart. So you can look at this. You can have, there are different types of bar charts. They all look nice. Now it is a 3-dimension pie bar chart if you think this is necessary. And we look here at the same thing for the pie chart that can be easily represented. Another graphical representation is the Pareto chart. As we said, there are many, so we'll focus on only those 3. So it's used again to portray categorical data, and it's a vertical bar chart where the categories are shown in descending order of frequency. You have the original data, they might not be in decreasing order, but it will be rearranged by Excel. And the cumulative polygon is shown on the same graphs. It is used to separate the vital few from the trivial many. Let's think about that. There are only a few reasons that are very popular between respondent and many trivial one. Let's take an example. So the reason for the last 200 incidents causing incomplete transactions in the ATM machine are reported below. Incomplete, the reason it could be the ATM malfunctions. It could be ATM out of cash. Card is jammed. The card is unreadable. Invalid password and the lack of fund in the account. So now we are asked to build a Pareto chart for the above data. Well, we'll have to go to Insert Graph, Histogram, and then Pareto. And we'll find the following. Keep in mind that these are not increasing in any order. So we've used now a percentage frequency, and this is how a Pareto chart looks like. It has taken the highest frequency, which is the invalid password at 34, and put it first. Which one is the second one? The card is unreadable, 31. And then 15, 12. It has rearranged the order in terms of decreasing frequency. But not only that, it has created a second axis on the right side, which gives me the cumulative frequency. So if I have invalid password alone, it's 34%, and see from the axis there, we have to read it from the right side. And then I put the next one. I put together 34 and 31, this is 65%. So here is on this around 65%. And so on. So at the end, it covers all the reasons, so it is one thing. So this is the Pareto chart, and if we look at it more carefully, we see that it is the first two will correspond to my vital few. They cover just those two reasons, cover 65%. And these are considered trivial many. They are important, but they are not as important as the other one. So let us go back to Excel and see how we can reproduce this ATM malfunction. So the table is already created, the reasons and the frequency. I will do the same thing as we've done before. So I will copy this, and I will copy also the relative frequency. I will ask to insert. Now I don't see the chart that I need, so I go to All Chart, and I will introduce an histogram. And I can see from the suggestion here, I have already the shape. Here it is. I notice now this is what they call a Pareto. But I have to fix it, because when I look at this, it seems that this graphics look like something continuous. The left hand side is the frequency. It was a percentage frequency, and the other one is a cumulative frequency. I can put the data also. So here, one of the important information, I can choose the style and the color of my graph, right? Now, if I click on these things here, so I can select the data series, and I will look on the right side here, the gap between the rectangles. I need a certain gap because this is not a continuous distribution. So this is how the Pareto graphs can look at. So the axis title I can fix as we saw before. I can fix the titles and all that. So this is called a Pareto. So the first two are what we call the important one, the vital one, and the smaller frequencies correspond to the other type. Less important. We have different colors, different graphics, different way of representing it, and you will see all these things. This is possible. But every time you have that, then you'll have to readjust the gap, because these are not continuous distribution. I like to click here data label, so I have the probabilities on each one. Maybe the color is not perfect, so maybe the fill should be different colors. So this is something that you can fix. 3 different types. So we saw the bar chart, the pie chart, and the Pareto. Now let's look at categorical data, and this is the second portion now, where we will look at the 2 variables. When we have 2 variables, how will we represent them? So I continue with the gender and level of computer experience that was collected for my 100 students. We have the data like before, and from that I will use now a contingency. I would like to put them together now. So this is when I put gender and experience together. This is how it would look when I use again the pivot table. I have 8 with minimum level of experience, 8 female and 7 male, for a total of 15. Or between male, level of experience, 7 minimal, 32 moderate, 14 extensive. I have created this. I can rearrange the titles. I can change the titles, so sorry, to make the table a little bit more meaningful. So this contingency table categorizes students in the sample by gender and level of experience. This is something interesting to have. Of course, I can build it on the total, the percentage of column total. I want to know the distribution among female. To know that, of course, now I will look at them column by column. I concentrate on female only, and 8 out of 47 will have a minimal level of experience. So this one here, just to recall, it's 8 divided by 47 gives me 17.02. 30 divided by 47 is 63.83%. So that gives me the column total table. Maybe I'd like to have a row total. I'd like to have the distribution of people with the minimum work experience, minimum computer experience. The same thing. To obtain that, I will take my 8 divided by 15, and that will give me my 53. 8 divided by 15, that gives me my 53.33%, and that is how it is obtained. Now, if I like to visualize this, if I have this table here, now that was my original table, and now I have produced a gender total. How will I represent that? So I can look at side-by-side bar chart. So for female, the percentage, we have 17% with minimal, we have 63% with moderate, and we have 19 with 0.15 with extensive. And similarly, we have for male students. Then whether we have more women or less women, it won't change the analysis and the look. Another way of putting it is by horizontal bar chart, which is the same thing. It's just that visually, that's how we see it. I'd like maybe to know at the percentage now, the distribution according to the experience level. So for minimal, moderate, and extensive, so this is my side-by-side. For those with minimum, so we have the female are at 53 and the male are at 46. But we see for moderate and extensive, male students declare to have more computer experience. And I can see it here for minimal, moderate, and extensive. So what do we analyze from that? What do we see? Percentage of male for moderate and extensive is higher than the percentage of women. This side by side, another example of that, suppose we have the following table. So we've reported the number of error when it was processed by a department. It is a total of 1, so that means it's something like the 100%. So of those with no error, 0.5075 for small amount, 0.2985 medium, and large 0.194. and I will add this and again horizontal bar chart. What can you say? So invoices with error are more likely to be of the medium sizes. Of course, we can see this information from the table, but a graphical representation of our problem is much more efficient. So we will go now to Excel and look at this kind of information. Here we have our data in Excel. As we do normally, I will click on the table, insert, and I look first at recommended charts. But this is not what I want. I want for errors and no errors. I'll go to all charts, and that looks more like what I need. This distribution, this side-by-side bar chart, gives me the distribution of the size of the amount, whether there are errors or no errors. So when we ask Excel to create side-by-side bar chart, we need to know what we want, because for Excel, it doesn't make a difference. As we've done before, I can create the axis, the title, and that will give me what we saw in the numbers. When we have errors, they're more likely to be of the medium size amount in the data file. When we have no error, it's more likely to be for small reimbursement. So this is how we create bar chart. You can, of course, change the colors, change the style, change the look, but the principle remains the same. I invite you to do the review test and test your knowledge. Test it with Excel and test it manually. So we'll see you at the next module. Enjoy it.